Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome to CK Bone Ministries. I am Carla K. Bone. I am broadcasting live to you on this evening. We are in the midst of our book club, book study. And we just finished Battlefield of the Mind by none other than Mama Joyce Myers, and we are studying my book, which is entitled Why Me? Why Me? We're studying this book, and I'm doing a study on it called Wisdom from Why Me. Remember, this book is available. It was released by none other than TBN Trilogy. It was released on July the 5th. It is available right now. It's available right now at all of your bookstores, at Barnes & Noble. It's available on Amazon.com. It's available on Trilogy.tv. It's also available by going to my website. It's at org. You can go right there and click that button that says order my book now, and it will take you directly to the page where you can order this book. Listen, this is one of my favorite works. This is one of the things that I have been working on actually since the year 2000. I'm super proud to bring it into fruition. Most people, they were concerned. They were saying, Carla, you're going over your life history. It was tumultuous. It was kind of rough there. Are you sure you want to put this out there? Because it's going to be considered like sharing your dirty laundry. And I said, it's time for us to start uncovering our past, especially when you have overcame like I have, and so we can be a help to the body of Christ and help people. It's time for us to take the covers off, take the sheets off, and it's time for us to let people know exactly where we came from. We didn't fall out of heaven and gravitate to the pulpits and to the platform. We all have a past. It's time for us to start using the things that has happened in our lives so that we could be a blessing to other people's lives. Listen, I want to share this work with you. It's so rich, and it's so full of lessons that I have learned over my life. Listen, I just want to give you a snapshot of what's inside and unpack this book for you. Just take a peek at this.
Have you ever wondered, why me? If so, you're not alone. Why Me? A Story of Abuse, Betrayal, and the Ultimate Journey to Purpose by Carla K. Bone is a brilliant, provoking story that is filled with vivid experiences, lessons learned, and applied wisdom that has shaped Carla's life. Why Me not only invites you into the story, but also allows you to partake in the resolution together and find healing, freedom, forgiveness, joy, and peace. Available at Amazon, your local bookstore, or at Trilogy.tv.
It is a fantastic read. I'm doing a study on it now called Wisdom from Why Me? Like, what would my older self tell my younger self? And so this is a fantastic read. It's a great gift that you can pick up and give to someone that has been suffering through any kind of trauma. I don't care what it is. It could be molestation, it could be rape, it could be incest, it could be domestic violence, it could just be pain, rejection, whatever they are going through. Listen, I'm telling you, it's impact in this book. It's not really long at all. It's a short read, but I promise you it is power packed with a lot of information, tools to help you to be able to overcome. There is even activities in this book where you can actually jot down and journal some of the things that's going and racing through your mind while you read this. Listen, I'm super proud about it. I want you to pick it up. But I want to also go into our study on this evening that's called Wisdom from Why Me? The topic for this evening that I want to talk about, remember, all we're talking about is things that I've learned over my lifespan that I power packed in this book that's going to be a blessing to many. I started to, and I talked about that last week, I wanted to talk about depression and things like that because it did affect me some of my adult life. But, God always has a different plan. So today I want to talk about something a little bit different, and then I'm going to go back to that depression piece on next week. Hopefully I'll touch that. But this week, coming from Wisdom from Why Me, I want to talk about a subject that I think we all can relate to. And the subject is entitled, The Devil Made Me Do It. I know you have heard somebody, or you have said it yourself, like, girl, I don't know why I did that. The devil made me do it. I don't know why I said that. The devil made me say that. I know, oh, that devil surely is busy. I know you have heard somebody say that, or you have said it yourself. And listen, I want to unpack that for just a moment, because listen, I believe we all have been there, or we know somebody who have been there, where you have done something, said something, or you've been in the middle of something, and the first thing you said to yourself, man, the devil made me do that. Or you probably said something to someone that you probably shouldn't have said, and you thought to yourself, man, the devil made me do it. Well, listen, I want to unpack that for just a little bit. And the reason why I want to unpack that, remember, I told you I always teach from transparency. You know, have you ever found yourself in the middle of somewhere, or maybe a place or an event or something, and, you know, you had in your mind how you wanted that whole event to set out, or you over someone's house, and you had in your mind how that visit was going to turn out, but somehow it just kind of skipped the pages, kind of went in another whole direction that you didn't intend for it to go? I don't know about, I'm going to raise my hand. I don't know about you, but that's been me. I've been, you know, planning to go somewhere or be a part of something, and what I had in my mind is not how it all turned out. Listen, I know, I've been there. And then the first thing you say to yourself is, man, I should have left, or man, I shouldn't even said nothing, or man, it ain't nothing but the devil. You know, I was having a good day and then this came up, you know, or the devil made me do it. I went there and I shouldn't have, or I know I've been there. And so listen, I want to just talk about that for a moment. The devil made me do it. You know, sometimes when we say that, we say it so callous, and we always giving the devil credit for stuff that he probably didn't have nothing to do with in the first place. And that's what I really want to unpack on this evening, is we give the devil far too much credit for having impact in our lives. And some of this stuff, listen guys, it's us. You know, it's not them, it's not him, it's me, oh Lord, that's standing in the need of prayer. You know, there was an old song, you say, not my mother, not my sister, not my brother, but it's me, oh Lord, standing in need of prayer. I honestly and fervently believe sometimes God in his permissive power allow us to be in situations like that, because that is the testing where he can see where we have developed and where we have not, and where there's opportunities for more development in our lives. He'll sit us in settings like that. And I remember distinctly, I was placed in a setting that I didn't start out that way. I thought it was going to be a great time. I thought I was going to have a great time. I was really planning for it for weeks. And immediately, as soon as I left the house and I got to where I was going to, it was totally not what I had expected. And I found myself sitting there, and I was just thinking to myself like, oh boy, this is not what I was thinking. I remember when my kids were young and we decided that we was going to have movie night. We was taking the kids to the movie theater. And it wasn't a lot of good stuff playing at the movie theater at that time. And so we didn't look ahead of time to see what was playing. We just kind of jumped in the car, got some snacks, stuffed in our pockets, and ran to the movie theater. And we went into the movie theater, and we just looked at a title. It was about to play like in the next 10 minutes. And we just said, okay, yes, give us 4 tickets. It's us and our 2 kids. And we go into the movie theater, and I was sitting there looking at it. In the first 5 minutes of that movie, it was wow. That's all I could describe it. It was every kind of nudity scene. It was all kind of stuff happening in that movie. And I was just sitting there looking like, okay, when is it going to get to like the movie? Because this, you know, we didn't really sign up for this. And then we have the kids. They were small. And I just sat there for a second. I finally just said, I shook my head and I told my husband, I said, I can't sit here no more. I said, I got to go. And I said, kids, come on, let's go. And we walked out. And, you know, I felt so elated. I felt empowered, because I started out wanting to go and have movie night with the kids, having a great time. It was a last minute on the fly type of situation. We hadn't planned for it, but we sat there and we immediately saw this is not what we had, had in our minds that we wanted to do with the children. And then this is not the kind of movie that certainly I'm not going to expose my children to, but it was the kind of movie that I was going to look at either. And we just got up and exited right out. And so, I was really proud of that. But I'm finding myself often being in the middle of a situation, or in the middle of a room, or in the middle of an event, or in the middle of something that I just hadn't planned on and had in my mind, in my thought processes, that this is what I'm going to be a part of. And it's not that, it was, really bad like that movie was or nothing, but it just wasn't what I had in mind. And sometimes what I'm finding is, even if I'm placed in the middle of situations like that, I'm learning that just what affects someone else don't necessarily have to affect me. As an example, if I'm in the middle of a room, or I'm at a dinner or at an event, and everybody else is getting drunk and drinking and all that stuff, that does not affect me. I'm not drinking any hard liquor and things like that. So maybe a glass of wine with my dinner, but other than that, I've learned how to bring those boundaries around myself, so that just because what's happening on the outside doesn't necessarily affect me on the inside and change who I am. So I said that to say, sometimes you're placed in the middle of a situation and it's all around you. It is the essence of that space. It could be negativity. You in the middle of a situation and it's negativity, and it's all around you. It's caving in on you. Everybody got something negative to say, and you find yourself, everybody will know what your thought processes are. You find yourself being just as negative. I don't know about you, but I know I've been there. Some of the things that don't get my goat is, somebody's drinking, they smoking, or they're doing something that, that I'm not for. I don't have a problem. I can put up an easy boundary wall. I could eliminate myself through a 360 out the door. Doesn't bother me. But one of the areas where God is continuing to develop me is when I'm sitting in a space and it's a lot of negativity and a lot of negative talk happening. And don't let it be negative talk that is disguised as truth. One of my bad habits is I'm always tending, it's a bad habit, but it's a good habit in a way. I tend to be an advocate. And I've been knowing that since I was a child. I could see somebody being picked on, and immediately I want to get involved and intervene, because I can only imagine what that person is feeling like because they're being ganged up on or picked on. So I'm always advocating. I was in Chicago and I saw a Hispanic of descent mother who had a child who was going limp in her arms because she was having convulsions and high fever. And the people at a healthcare facility was laughing, and who actually worked there. And I was so upset. I just started ripping the baby's clothes off, blankets off, and I'm screaming and hollering bloody murder for someone to help this lady and her baby. And I left that situation literally and wrote a 12-page letter to the actual CEO of that healthcare organization, and later on wind up serving on the board of directors. I tend to be an advocate. And the Lord was showing me, he said, Carla, sometimes being an advocate, it's a good thing. Like in that situation where this lady was not getting any help, there was a language barrier, but they thought, the people who worked there thought it was funny, and the baby was actually having convulsions and going limp in her arms. The Lord was showing me, Carla, you advocated for that. And not only did you advocate for her to get help, but you also advocated for other patients who are going through and who have similar language barriers, and the staff having a sensitivity to other people who don't look like them. God says sometimes, Carla, you're being an advocate and advocating for people who don't have a voice can be a good thing. But sometimes it could be a bad thing. That's the caveat to the whole thing. Sometimes being a voice for the voiceless is a great thing. It's a good thing. But sometimes my advocacy get me in trouble. It could be a bad thing, where I'm in the middle of negativity, as I was going back before. I'm in the middle of negativity, and the negativity is disguised as truth. And the first thing I want to do is set the record straight. Hold on, wait a minute, stop the press, and then before I know it, I didn't went there. I didn't went negative. I'm yelling. I'm upset. I'm sweating and all. And God said, now that's when advocacy cannot be productive, but it can be destructive. And so I want to just share that with you. And the first thing I thought when I left, I was like, man, that devil show got me. Devil made me do that. I knew I should. God said, oh, hold on. Slow down. Don't get a devil credit for stuff that you already did yourself, that you were in total control and you did yourself. He said sometimes, Carla, your advocacy, it can help and sometimes it can hurt. And I said, I understand. He said it can hurt and be destructive to me because it'll hurt my development. It'll hurt my growth. So I'm learning that, it's okay to advocate for those who are voiceless. But God was sharing with me, you don't have anything to prove, to try to prove a point to anyone. When you advocating the truth of what somebody is camouflaging as a lie. And God said, you don't have to advocate for that, Carla. So remember I told you before, I'm still learning. Life is a forever going process. And we have to continue to learn and learn and learn. God will continue to take us from glory to glory. We have to learn. The day you stop being a learner is the day you stop living. So listen, as I was going over some notes for tonight. One of the scriptures that God gave me was Ephesians, the 5th chapter and the 4th verse. And this is something that I'm holding dear to my heart because I told the Lord, I said, Lord, help me to become an advocate for those who are voiceless, but help me to keep my big mouth shut and don't have to, set the record straight when it is not necessary. And so I'm learning just as you're learning. So in Ephesians, the 5th chapter and the 4th verse, in the NIV, it says, nor should there be any obscenity, foolish talk, or coarse joking, which are out of place, but rather thanksgiving. I want to read it also from the NLT versions, Ephesians, the 5th chapter and the 4th verse, and it says, obscene stories, foolish talk, and coarse jokes, these are not for you. I'm going to repeat that again. Obscene stories, foolish talk, and coarse jokes, these are not for you. Instead, let there be thankfulness to God. In the English Standard Version, it says, let there be no filthiness, nor foolish talk, nor crude joking, which are out of place, but instead, let there be thanksgiving. So I just want to take that a little further. When you read Ephesians, the 5th chapter and the 8th verse, it says, for you were once darkness, but now you are light in the Lord. Live as children of light. He's saying live as children of light. If you read that in the NLT, it says, for once you were full of darkness, but now you have light from the Lord. Go and live as people of light. That's the essence of what God was teaching me. He was teaching me that, Carla, there was a time in your life when you were living in darkness. You were living just like, the Bible talks about, the people, in the scriptures that wasn't following the word of God and wasn't following the scriptures. They were living all kind of obscene lives. They were saying all kind of obscene things. They were worshiping all kind of obscene gods. And God said, now, Carla, he said, you have had that life. You was out there, you was in the street, you was doing your thing, you was partying, you were drinking, you were having a great time. And he said, and now you have came back to me. You've came back underneath me. You came back as my daughter, my lost prodigal daughter. And now he's saying, all that other stuff when you were full of darkness, he was like, let that go. He said, but now, I love that, but now. People often say, oh, I remember, Carla, when back in the day when we used to go and party over at the Click or the Cotton Club and the Lord said, but now. Okay, see, that's the Carla of the past. That's the Carla of yesterday. God said, but there's a Carla of right now and in the future. But now, he says, you have the light from the Lord. The Bible says, let your light so shine that others may see your good works and glorify the Father in heaven. We have to let our light shine. We have to be children of light, the people of light. If we don't have light, then other people will not be able to find the light. So God was telling me, God said, Carla, you can't stoop down to that level. You can't go down to that level. You can't get all huffed and yelling and getting all in your feelings because lies is being masqueraded as truth and you need to set the record straight. God said you don't have to do that. I know the truth. You know the truth. That's the end of it. It's so invigorating when God really starts sharing his love and his truth to us. Then he starts navigating our lives down the path that he wants our lives to go. Because you start realizing earlier on, it's not about you, but it's about him and our relationship with him. I don't know who I'm speaking to on tonight, but you don't have anything to prove to anybody. And one of the things that I've learned is that God was telling me, God said, Carla, they persecuted my son Jesus. So clearly, you're going to be persecuted. God said they did it to him. They lied on him. So clearly, you're going to be lied on. And so what I'm learning is learning when to use my gift of advocacy and when to just keep my big mouth shut and let people say whatever they want to say. Let them think whatever they want to think. Because as long as I'm all right with God and as long as you are right with God, then that's enough. And if it's not enough, we need to ask ourselves why. I don't know who I'm helping on tonight, but this is one of the lessons that when you pick up the book, you'll figure it out. This is one of the lessons that I learned in Why Me. But listen, sometimes those lessons come back like a repeat where you have to repeat, refresh. And it's okay. It's okay to have to refresh. But that's one of the lessons that I learned in Why Me. We often typically engage ourselves in things. And the first thing we say is, the devil made me do it. Hold on. Not so fast. The devil don't always make us do certain things. Now, he is and can be very manipulative. He can be very persuasive. He can interject thoughts and make you think that you're the one thinking it. Yes, he has all of that stuff in his toolbox. But some of this stuff we have to differentiate and say, when is it when I need to take accountability for this stuff? And even if the devil was in the midst of all that, I need to take accountability that it must be a door where the devil has access. And I need to locate that door in my life to make sure he can't get back in. It's all about accountability. Being accountable to ourselves. The things that we let, allow, and permit. Those are the three words that I talk about in this book. We let, we allow, and we permit certain things to happen in our lives. And then we're trying to figure out, how did I wind up here in this space where I'm at now? I hope I'm helping somebody on tonight. I hope I am helping you to identify some areas where there is opportunity for growth. By just listening to my story, listening to how God has been navigating my life and giving me scriptures that I can hold on to, that gives me hope and it encourages me to say, hey, Carla, it's time to come up just a little bit higher in your development, in your walk. That's the same thing that God is saying to you on tonight. It's time to come up just a little bit higher in your development and in your walk. God has been challenging me to come higher and higher and higher. And sometimes those stairs, when you climbing a whole big long flight of stairs, your legs start hurting, your knees start cracking, and you got to stop, take a breath for a minute. That's how it's been in my development. But I am destined to get to the top. I am destined to fulfill the purposes that God has for my life. I am destined to make certain that I am committed to this ministry. I'm committed to helping each and every last one of you. I am committed to helping the people that God has already predestined me to meet along my journey. I am destined to open Prairie Grove Family Care Domestic Violence Center. I'm destined to start small groups for those who are being affected by domestic violence, not only for the victim, but also for the aggressor and for their children, offering counseling and supportive services. I'm destined for that. I'm destined. And I am going full throttle ahead. I have to complete the work that God has called me to do. So please continue to keep my ministry and keep me in your prayers. But I want to keep going. It says, once In Ephesians, the 5th chapter, 8th verse in the NLT version, it says, for once you were full of darkness, but now you have light from the Lord. So live as people of light. God wants us to live as people of light. When we walk into the room, people should literally stop and take a look, because we carry the light of the Lord with us. We carry the light of the Lord. I don't know who I'm talking to. Maybe God is calling you to a level higher. Maybe he's calling you to another step, another level. He's calling you to fulfill the purposes that he designed in your life. Maybe he's calling you to ministry. Whatever it is that God is calling you to, it's time for you to step up. Step up and do what God is calling you to do. Nothing else will fulfill your life other than doing what you know you are destined to do with your life. I know right now, this is what I am called to do. I was destined for it from the time I was born. And for a long time, I kind of ran from it. Another long time that I kind of denied it. And now I realize it's time to embrace it. I'm embracing it. Now, I don't know what's all ahead and what all these different steps and maneuvers and turns and roads and crooked roads. But I'm certain that he's made them straight before I get there. So listen, sometimes these things that we go through, when we use the devil as an excuse and say the devil made me do it, it's really just things that's holding us back. I'm going to give you a good example. Like the example I gave before. I'm in the middle of a room. There's a lot of negativity and negative talk that's going on. And me putting on my little advocacy hat, I'm trying to advocate for what I know is the truth. And in essence, trying to win the argument of truth versus what I know to be lies. But then ultimately, you can win the war, but lose. You can win the battle, but you can lose the war. Now, I may have won the battle to set the record straight with truth, but I may have lost the war, because in trying to win the battle, I'm getting all out of character, upset, yelling and carrying on, and that kind of, not showing the light of God that lives on the inside of me. Because they say sometimes people can make you go there. Especially if they're ganging up on somebody who is innocent, and I know them to be innocent and they haven't done anything. So that's why I say you can win the battle, but you can certainly lose the war. We don't want to lose the war where we are coming out of our light. We come out of our light and the light of God that shines through us, so that we can set the record straight on something that I'm pretty certain that everybody in the room knew was a lie when they first heard it. And so I'm trying to grow and develop in that area. And I've been growing and developing in that area. But have you ever realized that sometimes you want to grow and develop in a certain area of your life, and that's the very thing that keep coming back? I'm speaking as somebody. You trying to grow and develop in a certain area of your life, like me. I'm trying to grow and develop to be able to do just like I did before. I want to be able to go into a room of negativity and it doesn't even faze me. It doesn't bother me. Even if they lie on somebody who I know, I know it to be a lie. I want to be able to go into a space and it don't even bother me. I hear it and don't even hear it. I can keep walking and walk out that room just like I did the movie theater. When something is inappropriate, I just walk. Now, I've had victory in moments where I was able to do that. I was in the middle of a room in a space and I knew what was being said was nothing but lies, and I was able to just excuse myself and walk out the room. But then there's sometimes when there's this whole big gang up and lies being, falsified and looking like it's truth, and especially when I know it to be a lie, and now I got to prove my point. And I be asking the Lord, help me to keep my big mouth shut, but I have no points to prove. But have you noticed that sometimes the very thing that you have, you thought you overcame it, you thought, you've been in that space before, you won the battle, you won the war, you was able to do a 360 up out of there, but then you realize a few months later, it come right back. That's how tests work. They come right back. But listen, I'm encouraged. I'm encouraged that even when it comes right back, whether I got a C passing grade, a D or F, it doesn't matter. I get the opportunity to take it again. I used to tell my children all the time when they was in school and they say, well, Mama, I didn't do so good on my test, on my exam. I said, well, you know what you got wrong. And now the next time when you get ready to take another exam, you know what's right. I want you to be encouraged that even if you didn't pass the test, there's another opportunity to pass the exam. Because that's how life works. You may not pass one of your tests, but that don't mean it's the final exam. And so we all get opportunities to take the test again and to pass the final exam. So I want you to be encouraged even with that. Don't let the devil drop you into condemnation, because he's good at that. But Romans 8:1 says, for there is no condemnation for those who are in Christ Jesus, who are called according to his purposes. Don't condemn yourself, even if you didn't pass the test. I know I'm speaking to somebody. Somebody called you on the phone. And you gave them a piece of your mind. You was just waiting on that phone call. I don't know who I'm speaking to. It just hit my spirit. You were waiting on that phone call. And you was able to tell them what you wanted to tell them for the longest. And the first thing you thought about was, I shouldn't even answer it. But you answered it anyway. See, I know I'm thinking, listen, if you did, you human. But I want you to be encouraged that God is calling us to a level higher. He's calling us to a space where that stuff don't even bother us. My grandmother used to say all the time, it's water off a duck's back. It don't even bother us. God don't want us to compromise our light to be able to prove to somebody in darkness that they wrong. Let me say that again. God don't want us to compromise our light to prove to somebody in darkness that they wrong. My grandmother used to say all the time, if two people is arguing and yelling and carrying on, nobody knows which one is the foolish one. Because they both look foolish. I'm telling you, there's lessons. It's rich. Listen, get the book. These are lessons that I've learned in Why Me, and I'm still learning and developing. So get the book. Listen, I want to give you some takeaways. Anytime I broadcast with you live, I love to give you some takeaways, things that's rich that you can take with you to kind of help you in your journey and your walk. Right now, we've been talking about the devil made me do it. If you know somebody right now that uses that as an excuse all the time and say, you know what, I knew I should have left up out of there, but then the devil made me do it. I knew I shouldn't have stayed. That'd be a good time to click that share button. Right there. Click that button and talk and share it with somebody. Send it to their messenger account or share it on your Facebook page. Because you know somebody that says that all the time or feel like that all the time. The devil made me do it. I knew I shouldn't. I knew I should have took that job. Or I knew I shouldn't have went there. I knew I shouldn't have. Now it's a good time. Click that share button and share it on your social media network, because somebody in your network needs to hear that word. Listen, that's a great way you can partner with me here at CK Bone Ministries by hitting the share button. They don't cost you anything to hit the share button and say, you know what, somebody may need to hear that. Listen, I want to give you as a takeaway 12 keys, 12 steps, 12 keys to overcome what's been holding you back. 12 steps that you can take today to overcome what's been holding you back. Now listen, I just identified for you what I know holding me back. If I can take my life in totality, in summary, and tell you, okay, I've made a lot of strides in my life. Same thing with this book. I made a lot of strides in my life. I made a lot of areas of my life where I overcame. I didn't broke the record on a whole lot of things that has transpired in my life. And yes, I have overcame so much. But if I could be totally honest with you and tell the truth, the one thing in my life that God is still developing is what I just shared with you today. Advocacy. Knowing when to advocate for the voiceless and when to just keep my big mouth shut when it has nothing to do with the uplifting and the betterment of people. But it's calling myself setting the record straight, because I don't want to give people a perception that what they are saying is true and is false. That's the area that God is dealing with me on my development. It is the only area in my life that God has really been hammering in on me on my development. Now listen, I'm going on 50 years old. I have identified it. I know what it is. And that's the very thing that I have to stay in prayer about. It's feeling like I have something to prove. People's perception. People saying bad things. And I need to set the record straight. Because I know where God is taking me, I ain't got no room for that. I got to be dead to that. I know that. And that's why I'm working on it right now. I'm asking him to shut my ears and my eyes to people's perception and what they think and what they saying and all of their negativity. Now, I thought I had this area of my life licked, but you never know what you got licked until you are faced with it again. And ever since this book came out, I've been faced with that very thing again. And listen, it's okay because I'm learning. And I'm applying the scriptures. And I'm staying off of a lot of social media channels and things like that. If it's not for the betterment, the uplifting, I ain't reading comments and all that stuff. And see, that's how you get tripped up. I'm staying away from what trips me up. So listen, I want to give you these real quick. 12 steps to overcome what's holding you back. First of all, I want you to identify what's holding you back. Now, I just identified for you the one area that I know is great opportunities for development. I don't like to say holding you back, just opportunities of development. The 12 steps to overcome and help you to identify opportunities of development, because I don't feel like they holding me back. I feel like they're opportunities for me to come up a little bit higher and to develop. So number one is to create a positive environment. These are 12 steps to help you to overcome and gain opportunities for development. And we said before, it was overcoming what's holding you back. It's to create a positive environment to counter the negative or painful or dysfunctional environment that you may be a part of. And that starts in the mind first. Creating a positive environment starts in your mind first, child, in your mind. And we have to set our mind on things that is above and not beneath. Set our mind on things that of good nature, of good report. We have to set our mind. So now I'm learning to set my mind that even before I go somewhere, I'm learning, and see that I didn't do that the last time. I'm learning now. I set my mind before I even go somewhere, especially if you know it's that area that you're going has the propensity or the proclivity to be negative. I'm setting my mind before I get there. Carla, you're staying positive. Carlo, whatever is being said, it has no substantial or consequence to you. Mind your business. Just keep your mouth shut. Be cordial. I'm learning to talk to myself and set the scene in my environment that starts first in my mind. So, and then by changing words instead of, oh boy, here we go, it's gonna be negative. No, saying, you know what, I'm fortunate that I have these group of friends or these group of relatives or these group of people who I'm able to hang around. And God, although they may not be positive and they may not be going in some of the similar directions and where I'm going, I'm fortunate that I'm able to be the light in that room. See, you got to change your talk, because changing your thoughts changes your mind. Changes your mind, changes the aura that comes off of you that help change the environment. I'm helping somebody right there. First thing you got to do is create a positive environment. The second thing that you need to do, 12 steps to help you overcome what's holding you back. Create physical distance. I know that right there, that's going to hit you right where it needs to be. Create some physical distance. Put some space between you and those who trigger the worst that comes out of you. I know that sounds hard. I know it do. But come on. I said earlier in step one about creating this positive environment, but that don't necessarily mean you have to be there every Friday night. And you ain't got to be on the phone every Monday, every Wednesday, and every Friday. That don't mean you got to be, in their company, every Sunday evening, every Monday, every Thursday. You may want to just put some distance there until you gain enough strength and enough word inside of you that you can now be a positive impact in that type of environment as you still developing. So put some space there between you and those who trigger the worst out of you. And listen, you know who them people is. People who trigger the worst out of you. As soon as you go around them, you start acting different. You start, talking different. You start, your behavior is different. Your countenance is different. Your attitude, your aura, everything about you is different. It kind of cultivates inside of those environments that the very thing that you didn't want to be like, you become. And in the process of you putting a little distance there, pray for them. Because that will help you gain more strength and momentum in your prayer life. And start praying and advocating for them in prayer. And praying that God will continue to help them and bless them. And that they can live out their purposes in their life. And whatever needs to be developed in their life, God will certainly work with him as he worked with you. That's a great way to create a better space and a better environment to those who trigger the worst that come out of you. You know who those people are. And sometimes it couldn't even be people. It could be places. You already know when you go to that certain place that it triggers the worst out of you. And listen, that place, it could be you. When you go to that church, it triggers the worst out of you. Because they bolster your pride and they bolster your ego and they tell you how great you are and you go around prideful and arrogant and egotistical. You know what these places and people and things are that trigger the worst out of you. Identify what that is and then put some space there as you develop. The third thing that you can do to help you overcome the things that's holding you back is do your own work. Do your own work. I remember when I was homeschooling my children. I talk about them often because a lot of the lessons that I've learned in life came from being a parent. When I was homeschooling my children, I remember I would give Glendon assignments to do and give Kaya assignments to do. And Kaya, as usual, would always finish before Glendon. And then she's over there on his paper, trying to help him finish his paper because they thought if they finished fast, they could go outside. And I used to tell her all the time, do your work. Worry about your work. What you over there on your brother's paper for? And listen, we do that as adults. Instead of us working on our work, we over there on somebody else's paper minding their business. Trying to tell them what they need to work on. Come on now, I'm helping somebody right there. Instead of us working on our work and working what God is showing us about us that need to come up higher and develop, you sitting there taking what God's showing you and you applying it to somebody else's paper. Well, if my son saw this, woo, he wouldn't need this real bad. Or if my cousin Louis, if he was online, I want him to see this because he needs to work on so and so. Well, don't identify somebody else's work. Work on your work. Identify your work. Because I'm not talking to cousin Louis and I'm not talking to your son. I'm not talking to cousin Angela and Besa and Willie Earl and none of them. I'm talking to you. God got you here watching this because it's you, oh Lord. You, oh Lord, like I started earlier, standing in the need of prayer. Not my mama, not my sister, not my brother, but you standing in the need of prayer. He got you watching this for a reason. Do your own work. Focus on yourself and build yourself so that negative influences can no longer impact your life. I'm going to stay right there. Do your work and work on you so that negative influences can no longer impact your life. God showed me something about that, and I just kind of sat and thought to myself, I said, Lord, you sure right. I remember when President Trump first took office, and I used to watch CNN quite a bit at that time. And I was very much curious when he took office. I was curious, how would he do? Now, normally, y'all, I don't talk about politics and so forth, but there's a huge example in this that I want to share. I wanted to know him being first time president and not coming from a political arena. I was curious as to how he would step into his new role, being the president of the United States and the commanding officer for the U.S. I was wondering, because that's huge. Because I'm stepping into an arena in my life, in a ministry that God is calling me to that I've never been before, right? And so this is uncharted territory for me. I only have examples of people who went before me, like Mama Joyce Myers and, several others, Christy Kane and a lot of others that I watch. And so, but it's not the same as it happening in your life, watching someone else. But when he took office, by him not coming from the political arena, him not coming from this politician role, he's never had a government office role. I was curious as to how he would be able to navigate himself around and how he would be able to manage himself, not having that in his background. I was curious, and I was quite surprised at what I saw. What I saw is that a man who took office running the free world, who, in my opinion, he wasn't prepped and he was unprepared. And the only reason why I say that, and I mean it no disrespect, I say that is because every time someone in the press or, gave him bad press, he would stop what he was doing to address it. He would stop whatever he was doing to address it. If you didn't give him great reviews or compliment him, and it just showed there was some insecurity there. It doesn't mean that he was a bad person. It just means that it's a question I beg to ask myself all the time, is that was he prepared for the position? Was he prepared for the position? And there's nothing worse than to be called to a space and a spot that you are unprepared. And as I watched him, I began to pray for him, and I began to pray for the platform and pray that he wouldn't spend so much time focused on his critics, but he would spend time doing the work that he was called to do. So listen, that's been my prayer for myself ever since I saw that I won't focus my attention and my efforts on my critics, but I will focus my attention and my efforts on the work that I am called to do by God. And I think ultimately, had he been prepped and prepared for the role that he was taking, it probably would have took another whole turn, his presidency. It would have took a different turn. But I just think that maybe what I'm talking about now, taking opportunities to develop, just like how I just realized what my issues are and what's holding me back, taking an opportunity to identify, you don't know where God is calling you. You don't know what your purpose is in life and what opportunities is going to meet you at the level of your preparedness. And you have to ask yourself right now, while you on the backside of the mountain and nobody knows you, what do I need to develop on so that it doesn't hinder the progress of where God is calling me? That's rich right there. There's nothing worse than to be called to a space and you're unprepared and you're undeveloped. Figure out what that is. Figure out what it is. What we're seeing right now with our former president is we're seeing right now the result of when you're not prepared for what you are called to. And anybody could have been preparing him for that space. But again, that's self-inspection, self-evaluation. And I'm sure there was opportunities along his journey where he could have evaluated himself and start working on those areas. And so our prayer, even within ourselves, should be, Lord, help me to prepare before I get there. Whew, that's rich right there. Lord, help me to prepare before I get there. Ooh, thank you, Jesus. Okay, number 4. Practice mindfulness. Focus on the present, not the past. Eventually, the past will lose its grip on you. Practice mindfulness, being mindful about the present and not always about the past, because the past, it will hold you like this as a grip. But if you are practicing being mindful about the present right now, the past eventually will lose its grip. If you find yourself every time you in a circle of people, you keep talking about the past and what happened to you and what hurt you and what this person said to you and what they did to you and how this affected you, and then you focusing too much effort on your past. And that's why the past has its grip. But when you focus and be mindful of your present, the past loses its grip. Listen, number 5, be gentle with yourself. It's easy to be hard on yourself, but it takes time to learn new behaviors. Don't criticize yourself or others on your development. Like me, I feel like there was areas where I could have did better. I felt like there's areas of that area of my life that I could have came up higher. But I'm not going to criticize myself for it or live in condemnation. I just say, okay, Carla, next time, be prayerful of my environment. Put some distance there. Make certain that I'm on point. Pray before I get there. Number 6, allow your emotions to flow, even the negative ones, in a controlled environment. If you try to suppress your negative emotions, listen, and stuff them, you're not doing anything but hurting yourself. You should let them flow. One of the things that I've learned is negative emotions is like a riptide. You know what a riptide is? A riptide is a tide that goes out and then it comes in like a flood. That's how negative emotions are. But oftentimes we allow those emotions to be like riptides. They come out of us and overtake the situation, and then they come back to us. Well, we should be able to let those emotions flow, but in a controlled environment. As an example, I remember when someone said something that bothered me, and I didn't say anything at the moment, but I waited until I was in a controlled environment, because if I said something at the moment, it probably wouldn't have came out correct, and then that would have probably damaged the relationship. So what I did was I waited until after I left. And then I pulled my husband to the side and I talked to him and I said, hey, hon, I was feeling this kind of way when this person said that, and I just really, and he's kind of looking at me and I'm like, okay, stop. I don't need you to fix anything about me right now. I don't need you to fix the situation. I'm just venting right now. I'm just telling you how that comment that this person made, how it made me feel. I wanted to communicate that in a controlled environment. And I wanted to do it because I didn't want to hold on to it. Because to hold on to negative emotions like that, what would have happened was I would have stuffed it. I would have acted like it's not there. And then as soon as I got around that person again, all of that would have came back out again. Just like a tide. So what I'm saying is that number 6, allowing your emotions to flow, even if they are negative ones, but in a controlled environment. When it's uncontrolled, it's because you addressing it at the moment, in the heat of the passion of it, to the person who you feel like said it, and nothing ever comes out correctly when you do it that way. I wait, I process, I think, I even whisper a prayer, and then I vent and say, hey, just wanted to share something with you. I'm not even sure if what I'm thinking and feeling is right or correct, but I just wanted to get it off my chest. I wanted a safe space where I can do that in a controlled environment so that I don't ruin relationships along the way. Number 7, accept that the other person might not apologize. And I know that's hard, that's difficult, because oftentimes, apology is like validation. When people apologize and say, hey, I'm sorry, hey, I didn't mean it, hey, I don't know what happened. Listen, I'm the first one to apologize all the time. I tell you all the time, listen, my cheese must slid off my cracker. I really apologize. I didn't mean it, such and such. But some people have a very hard time apologizing. And oftentimes people that can't apologize for wrong they've done are people who are prideful. The Bible said pride comes before the fall. And so, listen, if you have a hard time apologizing and saying that you're wrong and that you did something wrong, and every time you get ready to talk about a situation, it's always the other person's fault and not yours, that's a key indicator that you're dealing with some pride there. And the best thing to do in that case is to talk to the Father and ask Him, Lord, show me the errors of my heart. And if I'm standing in error in any way, Lord, convict my heart and show it to me. And help me not to be prideful, that as you show it to me, I fix it and I get it right. And I go back and I apologize to those whom I hurt. Because I certainly don't want to be holding anything or hurting people. Unbeknownst to me, that's what I'm doing. Now, that goes a two-way street as well. Because sometimes people will try to hold you accountable saying that you hurt them, but really you just told them the truth. And they didn't want to hear the truth. So you gotta, oftentimes when people say I say things, because I'm very bold in my spirit and I'm very honest as well. You can't get no more honest than me. And because of my honesty and my boldness, people oftentimes misinterpret it to being mean, and I'm not. Listen, I'm a teddy bear with roller skates on. I promise you, I wouldn't hurt a fly. Not a fly. And if you knew my past and my history, you would know that to be true. However, I'm honest. And sometimes when I give people you come to me, you ask me something, I'm going to give it to you honestly. And when I give it to them honestly, then they say I hurt them. But sometimes they wasn't looking for honesty. They was looking for me to go along with them. So that's a different dynamic. I always ask God, I say, Lord, if I've erred in any way, show me the ways of where I erred. And if I've done anything that is improper, please show it to me. And show me if this person, what they're saying I said hurt them, if there's any validity there. And oftentimes, it's only one time I recall him saying, yeah, you did do something wrong. But oftentimes he'll say, no, sweetheart, you just told them the truth and that's not what they wanted to hear. So just checking that as well. Number 8, I'm wrapping up. Engage in self-care. Engage in self-care. And here are some ways that you can do that. Number 1. Setting boundaries. Set boundaries for yourself and set boundaries for other people. Now that may be tough. People may see this being cruel, but I have recently had to set some boundaries even within my own life. I had to set boundaries. People sometimes think that they have a right to say whatever they want to say, do whatever they want to do, and treat you whatever they want to treat you, and do whatever they feel like is floating their goat, as they say. And I had to set some boundaries to say, I'm an adult. I don't need nobody to come behind me to tell me what I need to do and what I need to not do and what I need to have and what I don't need to have and where I need to be and where I don't need to be. I had to set some boundaries there. Because sometimes people will step outside their boundaries and actually think that they're right. And they're actually wrong. I tell people all the time, it's only grown folk in this room. And we ain't got to be, telling grown folk what they need to be doing with themselves and with their time. And you have to set those boundaries. And then don't let people make you feel guilty because you set boundaries. One of the things that I notice is people who like to impede on your boundaries are people who have set boundaries for themselves and make sure you don't impede on them. I know people right today, they set boundaries. They was like, hey, we don't take phone calls after such and such time. And they turn their phone off. But if you turn something off, they got a problem with that. That's what I mean when I say set boundaries and don't let people make you feel guilty about them either. They got boundaries that they set for themselves. You set some for yourself. It's all grown folk in the room. Number 2, saying no. Saying no is okay. It's okay to say no. No, I can't do that. No, I'm sorry. I know I told you I can, but I can't. Being free to say no to some people. I'm sorry I can't loan you that. I'm sorry I can't give you that. I'm sorry I can't do that for you. I apologize. Being able to say no in freedom. Do things that bring you joy. This is all in how to engage in self-care. Do things that bring you joy. Oftentimes I'm guilty of it. I'm always trying to do things that I think will bring other people joy. Like, oh, this person seems like they need a break, or, oh, how can I put a smile on their face? And there's nothing wrong with that as long as it's in balance. But you need to make certain that as you go through your life, because you only get one, that you do things that bring you joy, and do it unapologetically. Sometimes people make you feel guilty because you doing things that bring you joy. You going places that bring you joy. You doing things in your life that's bringing you joy, because you were so used to propping them up and making them happy, until now that you're making yourself happy, they have a problem with it. Unapologetically do things to bring yourself joy, and get rid of the disease to please. These are all things you can do in self-care. Get rid of the disease to please, trying to please people. You will never be able to please everybody. Somebody gonna always have a problem with you, and that's okay. Get rid of the disease to please, and then take control back from those who try to control you. This is how you can engage in self-care. Take your control back from those who try to control you. Whether they were trying to control your, how you are, what you do, your schedule, your time. Some people just try to manipulate your time. Take your control back unapologetically. This is not about you anymore. It's about me. Take it back. Number 9, we talk about 12 things that will help you overcome not being tripped up. Surround yourself with people who fill you up, not deplete your energy. Surround yourself with people who will fill you up. I told God, I said, Lord, I need to be around people that are like filling stations. I can just plug in and get filled up. I do not want to be around people that is like the swamp, that just once you walk in, it's like quicksand. They suck you in. Start praying and asking God to put people in your life that will fill you up. Not every time you're around them, you feel drained and depleted. You've been doing you were with them for 3 hours at the mall, and you did 3 hours of counseling the whole time through all their problems. No. There's a time to help people, but there's also time to make certain that you're being filled up at the same time as well. Number 10, give yourself permission to talk about it. Some people, they need permission to talk about it. Give yourself permission. Sometimes we just stuff. We just let it go. And that stuff start resurfacing years later. And this is how a lot of areas in your life become undeveloped, because you don't talk about it. You just hold it. You stuff it. You think it's over with. And then 10 years later, here it comes right back again. Number 11, give yourself permission to forgive. Forgiving others. When you hold stuff against other people, it's like Mama Joy said, drinking poison and wishing the other person die. Give yourself permission to forgive. You may be saying, but I don't want to forgive. Ask God to help you to want to. Forgiving people is not for them. Forgiving them is for you, so that you can let go. So that you can let it go. And you can live healthy and happy and abundant. Number 12. If you're still struggling, seek professional help. Sometimes you just probably need to talk about it. You need a professional counselor. It doesn't make you crazy or you got mental problems. What it's saying is I'm at the end of my rope. I'm at the end of the road. And I have identified that I really need some professional help. I need somebody that I can talk to. And I can just dump and unload all this stuff. And they will help me navigate through my feelings and understand what's happening in my spirit, so that I can get rid of this stuff. And if all else fail with a professional counselor, find a trusted friend. But more importantly, even above all of that, talk to God. Talk to God. Out of everything that I went through that I talk about in this book, I did not seek professional help. I sought the counselor, the Holy Spirit. I sought God. And it was through Him and through prayer and through meditation and building a relationship with God was I able to start processing things. And every time God would show me something in my life that needed developing, the first thing I asked Him is, please show me where it came from. If there was a behavior that I had, show me where that came from. And then show me how to get rid of it. Listen, I certainly hope that this lesson has been a blessing to you on this evening. It has certainly been a blessing to me. I want you to remember, as always, that I am praying for you. I'm thanking each and every last one of you, all of my partners who are partnering with this ministry and who is helping me to do what God is calling me to do. Listen, we have a 2022 vision plan on our website where we're trying to purchase a brick and mortar building so that we can house all of this ministry and our supportive services. You can certainly come on board. We are a 501c3 organization. Thank you for all of your precious gifts. Also, you can go to our e-commerce store. We have everything on that store. You can purchase. All of your purchases go to help me, to help other people. I certainly thank each and every last one of you. On Tuesday, I look so forward to coming back to you again on Wisdom from Why Me. Listen, don't forget, you can go to Amazon.com. You can order your copy. You can go to my website at ckboneministries.org, or you can go to trilogy.tv or barnesandnoble.com, and you can order your copy of Why Me. It's a book that you don't want to miss. Tell a friend, tell a neighbor, buy it as a gift. We got the holidays coming up. It's a great book. Listen, I talk about a lot of stuff that happened even in my teenage years. So if you know any teenagers, this is a good book for them. It's a lot of stuff, listen, that they don't tell their parents, because I didn't tell mine, that this book will help navigate their life. I happened to sign a copy and gave one to a teenager, and she started reading the book standing right there in my face. And then she came and she pulled my coat and said, I'm going through some of the same stuff. Listen, our teenagers, our youth, our children, they need this. Get one for Christmas and put it under the tree and package it up for your teenager. And tell them, say, you know what? I want you to read this book. It's a lady that went through a whole lot in her life, and it started when she was at birth, and especially when she was a teenager. And then she really overcame her life, and I think it'll be a good read for you. It's a very simple and easy read with activities that will help us to apply what we are learning to our everyday life. Listen, I love you so much. I look forward to seeing you on next week. And as always, you are in my prayers. And don't forget, you can definitely partner with me by praying for me. I really appreciate all that you guys do. Until next week, I'll see you. And we're talking about Wisdom from Why Me. Don't forget, click that share button. Somebody needs to hear that. Next week.